Welcome to the C-Suite series presented by Channel Check and Noble Capital Markets. Noble's an SEC-registered, FINRA-licensed broker-dealer and the source of the equity research available on Channel Check. Today's interview features Beasley Media Group, NASDAQ ticker symbol BBGI. Noble Senior Research Analyst Michael Kupinski interviews Beasley Media Group CEO Caroline Beasley. Visit channelcheck.com or click the link in the description to access equity research, news, and advanced market data on Beasley Media Group, all at no cost. And now, here's Michael and Caroline.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our C-Suite interview series. And today we'll be interviewing Caroline Beasley of Beasley Media Group. Noble recently launched coverage of the company, and I couldn't be more excited about the future of Beasley. And I would really encourage you to take a look at our report, and that can be found on channelcheck.com. Caroline, I'm going to go ahead and just start with a couple of questions. Certainly, you have a ton of experience in the radio industry, and particularly not only at Beasley, but you spent decades in being a leading voice in the broadcast industry itself, and being on the NAB Leadership Foundation of the Board of Directors. And I also want to congratulate you on your recent award, your National Radio Award. And after all these years, I'm sure you faced many challenges and have seen the company evolve. And so from your point of view, why is this an exciting time to lead Beasley?
Well, first of all, let me just say thank you for allowing us to tell our story and for you asking questions. We really appreciate your interest. But yeah, today is a very, very exciting time for the company for multiple reasons. Our traditional side of the business is coming back now that we are emerging from COVID. We have best-in-class brands. Our ratings are the best that they have ever been, and we have a renewed emphasis on local, and local is a business that we can control, and I think we're going to talk a little bit about that later today. So we have our traditional side of the business that is doing really, really well. Then we have the digital side of the business that we've been really hyper focused on over the last several years, but particularly during COVID. And we just reported earnings a week or two ago, and we mentioned that 15% of our revenue in fourth quarter was generated from digital. Going forward for 2022, our goal is for 20% of our revenue to be generated from digital, and we see a clear path to get there. So we're very excited. Traditional, digital, and then finally esports. Our esports side of the business is, as well coming out of COVID, and we just got the good news that we will be able to host some in-person events this year. So that was a big part of the business model when we got into esports, and now that that's coming back, we're very pleased to hear that too. In addition to that, we've been able to expand our scale in esports during COVID. So there are a lot of great things going on about our company.
Well, you mentioned that your digital is 15% in the fourth quarter. You're on a great trajectory because it was 13% in the third quarter. So it's going in, very nicely in the right direction. Let's talk a little bit about the radio industry, and it's clearly undergoing some transformation. In fact, the whole media sector seems to be transitioning. When did you realize that the industry was evolving, and how is Beasley approaching that change?
Yeah, so Mike, you've been in your side of the business for many years, and you've seen all the changes that have occurred through radio. And I think radio really started evolving 10, 20, maybe even 30 years ago, but in particular, probably over the last 10 years. And that's when streaming companies have come to play, and they're really competing against our share of ear if you will. So, you know, we knew that we had to be hyper-focused. We needed to transform into the digital space, but also be hyper-focused on our content that we generate. So we've been really working hard to reach all those touch points within our company.
You know, and you mentioned about COVID, and I always, I hate talking about it, but it was such a big transformational issue that happened in the industry, in the media industry. Now that the pandemic seems to be, you know, on the back end of the pandemic, we're slowly getting back on track. Undoubtedly, that's good news for you in the industry, but in seeing that strong recovery. But can you give us some color on what things have changed at Beasley when compared to the beginning of the pandemic, and what you may have done to kind of fuel the recovery?
Yeah, I mean, I think these last 2 years have been a learning experience for every one of us, right? But you know, what we saw right off the bat, you know, in terms of COVID, is that our listening levels dropped dramatically. Today, our listening levels on the traditional side of the business, they're back, representing about 92% of where they were pre-COVID. So that those listening levels are coming back as more and more people are driving in the car. We expect it to even, you know, come back closer to parity. So we've seen that, and then in addition to that, our online content has grown. Impressions have grown, our audience has grown. So when we take a look at our audience and compare our audience today with pre-COVID levels, even, you know, back to 2018, our total audience size is actually higher today than it was before COVID. And that's because any downward shift that we've seen in over the year, we've been able to make up more so on the digital side. So that's one thing that we're seeing today. The other thing that I would like to focus on is, you know, what hasn't changed within our business, even through COVID. And that's our commitment to serve our communities, whether that be, you know, through raising money through local charities, you know, whether being there in times of need for, you know, emergency events, or even through COVID. I had a number of people reach out to me and just thank me. You know, thank me for providing them an outlet during their deepest, darkest moments through COVID. And, you know, there was a sense of calmness that our own air talent, they were able to provide to our audience. So we're really happy to hear that. And when you hear that you're able to make an impact, play a role in helping someone, then that's positive as well. In terms of the revenue side, so I talked about content. Let's talk a little bit about revenue. We are much more focused on digital revenue, and we're focused on local revenue as well, because local we have more control over, and we have more touch points that we can be able to deliver different products to our local advertiser. So that's another area that we really have started to focus on.
That focus on local community service that you mentioned, I think, is a great legacy that your father, George Beasley, had at that company. That certainly, I appreciate you continuing that great legacy. Talking about the recovery, advertising is now kind of robustly driving the revenue growth, and let's talk a little bit about the revenue stream. Can you give us a sense of what are the categories driving the revenue growth at this point on the radio side, and what trends are you expected to see as we look to the audio segment?
Yeah, so to break that out between our largest categories, consumer services, that accounts for about 29% of our revenue. Next after that is retail, which accounts for almost 16%. Then we have entertainment. And that is a super fast growing category for us because that includes sports betting. And that's a really big positive for our company. Last year in 2021, we generated a little over $15 million in sports betting revenue. And that is only from 3 markets, because there are only 3 markets that we're in that allow sports betting. That is Detroit, Philadelphia, and New Jersey. We're really excited about 2022 going forward, and that's we're hoping that Massachusetts approves sports betting. It's on the docket for this year, and if that is approved, then we expect sports betting to, you know, increase potentially by 50% next year, or in 2022 compared to 2021. And then of course we're seeing political revenue this year that we didn't have last year. Rounding out the top 4 categories though, and stepping back, I will say that auto, you know, continues to be a slight disappointment because of the supply chain issues. It only accounts for about 9% of our revenue today, whereas before, you know, it was either the top 1 or 2 categories for our company.
Right, and then I think at some point too, you might even see Florida legalize sports betting as well. So that could be yet another boost looking down the road at some point. You were talking about local and how you want to really focus on local, and it's about 79% of your audio revenues now. Can you talk a little bit about the benefits of local versus national and how your plans are to focus on growing your local business?
Yeah, so we have direct contact with the local advertiser, and we're able to go in, we're able to do a you know, client needs analysis. We're able to determine what the KPIs are that they're trying to hit and how we can help them. So it's really, we're able to be their marketing consultant, and we go in, and all advertisers, they have different buckets. They have a traditional bucket, they have a digital bucket, they have an event bucket, and whatever other buckets. So going in and being able to really focus on the local advertiser, we're able to take dollars from all of these buckets in an effort to do what is best for the advertiser. And our goal is, if the advertiser's revenue grows, then we've succeeded, you know. So, and they'll continue to come back and ask for our opinion. In terms of national is a commodity play. I mean, that is it. We don't have all the touch points with national as we do with local, and there's the local, or there's the traditional media bucket that we're competing with in national, and so we're not allowed to compete with the digital bucket or the event bucket. That's different people that we can't reach. So that's another reason why we're going after the local business.
And let's talk a little bit about digital, because it represents a pretty exciting growth opportunity for you. And I was wondering if you can distinguish your digital objectives, both from the digital O&O, you know, your websites, versus your digital strategy, your digital agency strategy called Digital Direct. So can you talk a little bit about how you envision the digital transformation? How do you see those, and you know, walk us through maybe the multiple business lines, whether it be the Digital Direct or your digital websites, and how you plan to take advantage of those multiple revenue streams.
Yeah, I mean, look, we feel like that is an area that is just ripe for opportunity. So we have our integrated sellers, that's the traditional sellers that are now selling digital. And look, I mean, that's one of the benefits of the pandemic, because everyone sees the need to really sell digital this day and age. So we have over 250 sellers out there selling on the integrated side. And then we have our digital direct sellers, and they focus on non-radio advertising. And they also focus, they're not limited to one geographic market. So we have our integrated sellers that sell to radio advertisers, and we're able to take many of their other advertising buckets and you know, develop a campaign that is best for them. And it's within the market that our traditional media is located. But for digital direct, we can go outside the market. You know, we're not constrained by geography or anything. And we're expecting that we'll have 30 digital direct sellers by this year, and that business will account for about 30% of total digital revenue. So we've got our integrated team contributing about 70% to the revenue, digital revenue line, and then the digital direct will contribute about 30%. We think that this is important because, you know, we have high goals for our digital revenue. 20% of our total revenue this year. You know, we're not going to stop at 20%. We expect that percentage to continue to grow next year and the following year. And we're not going to be able to do that with just the integrated sellers. So that's why we're bringing on a digital direct team.
Gotcha. And what's interesting about that too is that you know, other radio companies like Town Square Media have kind of moved in that direction, and so some of our viewers might be interested, might know Town Square and their strategy. And their strategy was to focus on the small markets, which has limited competition. But what your strategy is interesting because while you are concentrating on larger markets, there's a much bigger revenue opportunity as well. And so I was wondering if you can maybe give some color on how you see your digital direct business evolving. What really kind of interested you in moving in this direction in the first place, and how does the business model work? Is it very similar to Town Square, for instance?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, it's all about generating revenue, and we have our goals that we need to hit. And you know, you sit down and you develop a path as to how you're going to be able to achieve these goals. And again, we did not think that we would be able to achieve the revenue goals that we were aspiring to by just our integrated sellers. So we knew that we would have to build this agency type business on the side to help us get the lift that we needed. So that was really why we did what we did. Plus it opened us up throughout the world, you know, well, not throughout the world, but throughout the US, you know, because before we were just limited to our geographic markets. So those are the reasons why we did that, to build out the digital agency.
And in terms of digital, you know, obviously you have a variety of platforms, you have mobile apps, you have websites. You mentioned a little bit about content creation and so forth. Can you talk a little bit about your plans for investments in terms of content, and what are your deliverables in terms of those investments?
Yeah, so you know, that's a great question. One thing is, you know, there are two areas in digital that we're focused on. We're focused on revenue generation, sales, and then we're focused on growing our audience and content. So what we did several years ago is we hired a national content team, and that team generates editorial content throughout all of our websites, and they also do some video as well. And then recently we have added to that team, we have digital program directors within each market, and they're responsible for providing local content on our sites. And the end goal is driving impressions and increasing our audience, because that's how we're going to be able to monetize it. We need the local flavor that aligns well with our brands, but we also have the national content that we're feeding into all of our sites as well.
And I kind of want to circle back. You talked a little bit about political advertising. In this year, obviously, some have indicated that the thought might be that political might even eclipse what we saw in the presidential election year in 2020. And certainly it's a nice tailwind for you. But I was wondering if you're starting to see, and what are your thoughts for political in terms of maybe what you've done in 2020, or thoughts in terms of the number for this year?
Yeah, so for political, first of all, we have a political task force that is up and running. They've already contacted the local and state political candidates. So we're getting our pipeline built already for the latter part of this year. For midterm, we don't expect that political will be as high for the midterm election as it was for the general presidential election. We generated, I think, about $15 million in the 2020 election cycle. In 2018, we generated about $5 million. I think that will be closer to the 5, maybe about 20% higher than that number, but certainly not comparable to the 2020 numbers.
Do you anticipate that your digital business will get political this year?
I anticipate our digital business will get political, and if we don't, I want to know why we haven't gotten political, because our task force should be out there. We should be getting traditional, we should be getting digital as well. Anything that we offer, we should be getting a piece of the political pie.
So I want to go back to your esports. Obviously it's very interesting to get exposure there. It's an area that I also follow, the esports industry, follow a number of companies in that space. So I find it exciting that you're taking a foot in the water there. So can you talk, and I know that you recently made more investments in that space, and I think you did it in a very smart way. And I was wondering if you could just talk about the process of acquiring another esports team and how this all makes sense for Beasley.
Yeah, so, I compare esports to, other media, if you will. I mean, we're providing content to an audience, and then we want to get sponsors to, reach our audience. And that's the same way that we view radio or digital, content as well. So esports, we view it in the same manner. So as we have the Houston Outlaws, that was our entry into esports content, if you will. And we quickly determined and learned that, scale is better in esports. And so because our sponsors were asking, we were competing with other esports organizations that have more than one team, and they were asking, well, what else can you provide to us? So what we decided to do is we looked at the different games that are being played in the space, and we wanted to get one that was more general market, if you will, and one that has great viewership. And so we decided on Rocket League. It's an easy to play game, and there are 90 million viewers on a monthly basis. And so we just held a contest and ran a contest for the best players, the best teams. And so that's how we put together our team. We built it organically. And so our only investment in doing this is the cost of the players' salaries today. And from day one, it was profitable. So we're really excited about that. We're looking at expanding into more teams, and with a low cost point of entry is what we're focused on, because we do need more scale in that area.
It was like the American Idol for esports. I think it was very smart.
Yeah,
very smart.
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about the debt, and the debt matures in 2026. So you got a long runway out there to make these investments and grow the company, and a lot of financial flexibility. I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about your financial flexibility, the prospects of maybe pursuing M&A transactions. What might be interesting to you if that opportunity came up? Certainly, you're exploring and finding a smart way to get a better footprint in esports, but what might be some other M&A opportunities out there?
Yeah, I think that we've been very transparent on what we're looking for, and that is a digital company that would allow us to grow faster in terms of our digital revenue. And we're looking at two different types of digital companies, one that would provide content so that we could expand our audience online, but then also is there a digital marketing service company out there that could help us maybe lower our costs so that we're able to improve our margins, on the digital direct side of the business. So we're looking at those two type companies to potentially acquire. And then, in terms of our debt, we're always focused on our debt. It does mature in 4 more years. So we do have some runway, but if there is an opportunity to buy down that debt, depending on where our debt is trading, we will look at that as well.
Well, Caroline, I'd like to thank you for your time today. For the viewers, I would really would encourage you to take a look at my research on Beasley Media Group. The stock symbol is BBGI. I have it rated outperform. In those research reports, you'll also see all the disclosures that we have to make sure that you're aware of as well. But you can receive all those research reports on channelcheck.com, channel spelled the traditional way, check spelled CHEK.com. Caroline, thank you again. Really enjoyed talking with you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us for this C-Suite interview presentation brought to you by Channel Check. View our YouTube channel for more video content, including C-Suite interviews, virtual roadshows, and conference presentation replays. New content is added regularly, so subscribe below to stay up to date. Visit channelcheck.com or click the link in the description to access equity research, news, and advanced market data on this and the 6,000 other small and micro-cap companies listed.